Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at this idea, your voice is your personality.
Okay.
And that's the title of our source material. It's an article by Srividya, published on Medium. So we're going to unpack this connection between expressing your authentic self and personal growth. What does that really mean, like in everyday life?
It's such a fascinating topic. So much of our lives involves figuring out when to speak up,
Yeah.
when to compromise, and how to stay true to ourselves through all of that.
Exactly. And this article jumps right in saying your voice is your identity.
It's pretty bold.
Yeah.
It even goes on to say that staying silent when you disagree with something,
Right.
well, it's like losing a piece of yourself.
Right.
Have you ever felt that?
Oh, it really makes you think about all those times we bite our tongues.
Yeah.
The article's definitely onto something when it says our voice isn't just sound.
Uh-huh.
It's our beliefs, our values, all wrapped up in how we express ourselves. For sure, but life is about compromise, right?
Right.
We can't always get our way.
True. But here's where it gets interesting. Think of compromise on 3 levels. Practical, like which movie to watch.
Right.
Preferential, like your favorite restaurant. And then value-based, the stuff that really matters to us.
Yeah.
This article pushes us to recognize when we're compromising at that deepest level, the one that could impact our well-being long-term.
So it's about knowing the difference between going with the flow
Right.
and silencing what truly matters to us.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. And the article gave this great example about creating harmony in your own space.
Right. Use the example of your home.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't have to compromise on what makes your personal space feel good to you just to keep the peace.
Yeah.
Psychologically, constantly suppressing your true self in environments meant for you can really wear you down over time.
It's like you're betraying your own needs to meet other people's expectations, even in your safe space.
Exactly. And that's where setting boundaries comes in.
Right.
But here's the catch.
Yeah.
We're always growing. Right.
So how do we square that with speaking our truth? What I thought was a hill to die on last year maybe isn't so important now.
That's where cognitive flexibility comes in. Think of it like mental yoga, being able to stretch your thinking, adapt to new info. It's like the article's metaphor of the growing tree. Our voices, like branches, reach in new directions as we learn and change.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these pieces fit together. It's not about being rigid,
Right.
but about being honest about where you're at right now.
And being open to that changing, too.
Yeah.
Speaking your truth isn't a destination. It's more like an ongoing conversation with yourself.
That's a great way to put it. So how does this tie into personality? The article talks about how our voice actually shapes who we become.
It's fascinating. Think about it. Communication style, how assertive we are, even empathy. All of that comes through in our voice. It's like our personality is audible.
That makes so much sense. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it.
Absolutely.
Right.
There's a whole science to nonverbal communication, which we can dive into later. But think about how much your tone of voice,
Yeah.
even a pause, can reveal about your emotions. It's like a secret language we're all speaking.
Whoa, so every conversation is this multi-layered thing. We're giving off cues we might not even realize.
Exactly. The article even says that public speaking or even just casual chats can hold a mirror up to our inner world.
Yeah.
The more we express ourselves, the more we understand ourselves.
Okay, that's making me rethink every meeting I've ever been in. Okay, so we're seeing how our voice is this super powerful tool for both self-expression and self-discovery.
Yeah.
But let's be real, finding that inner peace the article's always talking about, it's kind of tough in our crazy busy world.
It really is. We're constantly bombarded with information and opinions.
Right.
It's hard to even hear your own thoughts sometimes, let alone express them authentically.
Right. And the article suggests that one way to find that peace is by aligning our outward actions with those inner values we were just talking about.
It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk. When what we say and what we do are in sync,
Right.
there's less internal conflict.
Yeah.
We feel more genuine, and that can bring a sense of calm amidst the chaos.
It makes sense if you're always putting on a mask.
Right.
That's got to be exhausting.
It's like living a lie, and that takes a toll on you emotionally.
Yeah. So how do we even start figuring out those core values?
Okay.
And then how do we actually live by them? It feels kind of overwhelming.
That's where self-reflection comes in.
Okay.
Take some time to think. What truly matters to you? What guides your decisions?
Yeah.
What kind of impact do you want to have on the world? Those are like big questions,
Yeah.
but they're the foundation of a strong voice.
It's like know thyself, but like on a deeper level.
Exactly. And remember, those values might shift as you grow. What felt important 5 years ago might not be the same today.
Right.
That's normal. It's part of the journey.
So it's an ongoing process of checking in,
Yeah,
reevaluating,
right?
and maybe adjusting course.
Exactly. You're never truly done figuring this out.
Right.
It's about staying curious and open to evolving.
Okay, that's a relief. Now, the article also talks about this beautiful image of our voices contributing to the symphony of existence.
Okay.
What does that even mean in practical terms?
Imagine each person's story is an instrument.
Okay.
When we share those stories authentically, we create a richer, more harmonious sound in the world.
Okay.
Think about what your instrument is
Right.
and how you can play it louder.
Wow, I love that analogy. So it's not just about personal growth.
Right.
It's about contributing to something much larger.
Right. When we're brave enough to share our true selves, we inspire others to do the same.
Okay, I'm feeling inspired. But let's get real for a second.
Mm.
Those small moments of speaking up can be so hard. What did the article say about those times when we hesitate,
Oh, go.
when we're like scared to share our truth?
It acknowledged those challenges head on.
Okay.
It said that fear of judgment or worrying about disappointing people holds us back. And let's face it, those fears are valid.
Right.
No one likes being criticized or rejected.
Oh, I feel that. Like, what if people think I'm being difficult or just wrong?
But the article flips the script on that fear.
Okay.
It asks, what's the cost of staying silent?
Right.
Are you sacrificing your integrity to avoid discomfort?
Uh-huh.
Are you dimming your own light to fit in?
Yeah.
Are you missing out on real connection because you're afraid to be vulnerable?
Ooh, those are tough questions.
They are, but they make you think, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes courage over comfort
Mhm.
is what's needed to really find your voice.
And doesn't it also matter how we speak up?
You're so right. It's not about being aggressive or disrespectful.
Right.
Speaking your truth should be done with empathy and understanding.
It's not about winning an argument. Right.
It's about honestly expressing yourself.
Exactly.
Even if you disagree with someone, you can do it respectfully.
Exactly. Sometimes the bravest thing is to say, this is how I feel,
Yeah.
even if it's not the popular opinion.
Okay, so let's say someone listening to this is ready to start speaking their truth more often.
Mhm.
What's a good first step, something practical they can do today?
Start paying attention to those moments when you feel that nudge to speak up, but hesitate. Ask yourself, what's holding me back right now?
Right.
Is it fear of judgment, lack of confidence, or maybe a feeling that my opinion doesn't even matter?
That last one is so relatable.
Yeah.
I catch myself thinking, my thoughts aren't interesting enough to share.
It's a common experience, especially if you've been told to stay quiet or that your ideas aren't valid.
Right.
But the truth is, every voice has value. And the more you practice speaking up, the easier it gets.
So maybe start small. Share an opinion with a close friend where the stakes are low. Exactly. Practice expressing your thoughts clearly, confidently. Pay attention to how it feels to let your voice be heard.
Yeah.
And as you get comfortable, you can gradually challenge yourself to speak up in more challenging situations.
I like that it's like building a muscle.
Yeah.
But what about when you do speak up and it doesn't go well?
Oh,
Like you face pushback or criticism.
It's important to remember, not everyone will agree with you,
Right.
and that's okay.
Right.
The point isn't to convince everyone to see things your way.
Yeah.
It's to stay true to yourself.
And sometimes that means agreeing to disagree and moving on.
Absolutely. You can still maintain your composure, communicate respectfully, even if you're facing disagreement.
It's about choosing your battles wisely, knowing when to stand firm and when to gracefully step back.
Exactly. Discernment is key.
Yeah.
The more you practice speaking your truth, the better you'll get at recognizing when to engage and when to let it go.
So it's a learning process, like anything else. Now, you mentioned earlier that our voices convey so much more than just words. Can you talk a bit more about that nonverbal communication science?
It's fascinating. Your tone of voice, your pitch, how loud or soft you speak, even your pauses.
Yeah.
All of that communicates your emotions, your confidence level, even your underlying intentions.
So even if I'm saying all the right words, if my voice is shaky, people pick up on that. It's like betraying what I'm trying to say.
You got it. Our nonverbal cues often speak louder than our words,
Yeah.
and they can either reinforce or contradict our message.
So we've got to be mindful of both what we say and how we say it.
Precisely. It's about aligning those two things.
Now, earlier we touched on setting boundaries.
Right.
That's something that can be really difficult,
Yeah.
especially for people who avoid conflict or want to please others.
You're right. Setting boundaries often feels uncomfortable, especially if you're used to putting others' needs before your own. But here's the thing. Boundaries are essential for well-being.
So it's not selfish to set boundaries.
Not at all. It's an act of self-respect.
Okay.
It's like drawing a line in the sand and saying, this is where my comfort zone ends.
Right.
It's how you communicate your needs and limits.
But what if people get mad? That's what I always worry about.
It's normal to worry about that.
Yeah.
But remember, you have the right to protect yourself.
Okay.
Not everyone will be happy with your boundaries.
What?
That's okay. You're not responsible for their reactions.
So it's not about making everyone happy. It's about honoring yourself,
Right.
which honestly is a hard lesson to learn.
It is, but once you get it, it's so freeing. Okay, so let's say you've identified an area where you need to set a boundary. How do you actually do it?
Yeah, that's the part I get stuck on.
Be direct and specific.
Okay.
Don't beat around the bush or use vague language.
Right.
State your boundary clearly.
So instead of saying, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I might say, I can't take on any new projects right now.
Perfect. You're being clear and direct without being harsh.
Okay, what else?
Be firm but polite.
Okay.
Use a calm and confident tone of voice.
Right.
It's not about being aggressive. It's about being assertive.
So it's about standing your ground, but respectfully.
Yes. And lastly, be consistent.
Okay.
Once you set that boundary, stick to it.
Right.
If someone pushes back, calmly reiterate your limit.
So it's not a one-time thing.
Yeah.
You have to keep reinforcing those boundaries.
Exactly. And the more you practice, the easier it gets.
Right.
You'll start to feel more comfortable and confident setting those limits.
Now, the article mentioned that our voices can evolve over time. How does that work? I mean, if we're supposed to be authentic, does that mean we can never change our minds?
That's a great question. Just as we change and grow as people, our voices transform too.
Okay.
What you are passionate about at 20 might not hold the same weight at 40.
So it's not about clinging to old opinions just for the sake of consistency.
No, it's about being open to new experiences and information.
Okay.
As you learn and grow, it's natural for your views to shift.
And that's actually a good thing. I'm so used to thinking changing your mind means you were wrong before.
It's actually a sign of maturity. Being able to reconsider your opinions means you're open to growth.
Okay, that's a new way to look at it. But how do you know when to reevaluate a belief?
Okay.
Are there signs that we might be holding on to something that's no longer serving us?
Pay attention to that feeling of dissonance, of something not sitting right anymore.
Okay.
If you find yourself defending a belief that feels out of alignment with your values or experiences,
Right.
that's a clue.
So it's like a gut feeling that something's off.
Exactly. Another sign is resistance to new information.
Okay.
If you shut down or get defensive whenever someone presents a different perspective,
Right.
you might be holding on too tightly to an outdated belief.
It's like we're scared to let go of what we thought was true, even if it's not working for us anymore.
That's so human. But growth requires letting go of those old beliefs to make space for new ones.
But how do you let go without feeling like you're losing a part of yourself?
It takes self-exploration.
Okay.
Ask yourself tough questions, challenge your own assumptions,
Right.
and be open to the possibility that you might be wrong. It can be humbling,
Yeah, no one likes to admit they were wrong.
but it's also incredibly freeing. Letting go of those outdated beliefs creates space for growth, new possibilities, and a deeper understanding of yourself and the world.
So it's about letting go of the old to make way for the new.
Exactly. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination.
Speaking of journeys, the article kept talking about the importance of authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
But what does that really mean? Is it just about saying whatever pops into your head?
Not quite. Authenticity is about aligning your inner world with your outer world. It's about living in accordance with your values, expressing your true feelings, and being true to yourself, even when it's tough.
So it's not about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about being genuine.
Exactly. And it's about embracing your imperfections. Those are part of what makes you unique.
It's funny how we often try to hide those imperfections when they're what make us relatable.
Absolutely. When we embrace our whole selves, flaws and all, we become more approachable, more human.
So authenticity is about being comfortable in your own skin.
Exactly. And it's a process, not a destination.
Right.
We're all constantly evolving, and our expression of authenticity will evolve along with us.
Now, we've talked a lot about the benefits of speaking our truth,
Right.
but are there ever times when it's better to stay silent?
That's a great question. Yes, there are times when discretion is the better part of valor. For
Okay.
instance, if speaking up could put you or someone else in danger,
Mm-hmm.
it's probably best to stay silent.
Like if you witness a crime or are in an abusive situation.
Exactly. In those situations, safety comes first.
What about in professional settings? Are there times when it's better to hold back at work?
There can be. Let's say you're in a meeting and your boss proposes an idea you disagree with.
Okay.
It might not be the right time to launch into a debate,
Right.
but that doesn't mean you have to stay completely silent.
So how do you navigate that?
You can express your concerns respectfully, maybe phrase your disagreement as a suggestion or a question.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, that's a terrible idea, you could say, have we considered the potential impact on X?
It's about picking your battles and finding the right way to voice your opinion,
Right.
depending on the context.
Exactly. It's that discernment we talked about earlier.
Now, the article talked about how our voices can contribute to the symphony of existence.
Right.
But what does that look like in everyday life? How can our individual voices make a difference?
Our voices have power. They can inspire, educate, advocate for change,
Yeah.
and create meaningful connections.
Right.
Sharing our stories, voicing our opinions, even just listening attentively,
Mm.
are ways to contribute to a more vibrant and compassionate world.
It's not about becoming a famous activist. It's about those small, everyday actions.
Exactly. It's about being present in our interactions, listening with empathy,
Right.
and speaking with kindness and respect.
And recognizing that even our seemingly small voices can make a difference.
Absolutely. Every voice matters.
Now, let's talk about something that can be a huge barrier for people when it comes to speaking up.
Okay.
Fear of judgment.
Yeah.
It's one thing to say express yourself,
Right.
but it's another to actually do it when you're worried about what others will think.
You're so right. Fear of judgment is powerful.
Yeah.
It's often rooted in our childhoods,
Right.
where we might have been criticized or ridiculed for expressing ourselves freely.
So those experiences can stay with us, even as adults.
Absolutely. They can create deep-seated beliefs about whether we're worthy of being heard,
Mm.
if our opinions even matter.
So how do we overcome that fear?
Right?
How do we break free from those old patterns?
It takes effort, but it's possible.
Yeah.
One strategy is to reframe how we think about judgment.
Okay.
Instead of fearing it, see it as potential feedback.
So, like, someone's criticism could actually be helpful.
It can be.
Yeah.
It can highlight areas where you might need to adjust your communication style
Okay.
or work on setting clearer boundaries.
So it's not always a bad thing.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It can be a catalyst for growth.
Okay, but what about when the judgment feels personal or mean-spirited?
Remember that other people's judgments often say more about them than about you.
So if someone's projecting their negativity onto you, that's their issue, not yours.
Exactly. You don't have to internalize their negativity.
That's easier said than done. How do you actually deal with those hurtful judgments?
Try acknowledging the judgment without engaging with it.
Okay.
Let it roll off your back.
Right.
Remind yourself, you don't need everyone's approval to be worthy or valuable.
It's about valuing your own perspective, even if it's not the popular one.
Exactly. And remember, diversity of thought is what makes the world interesting.
Now, we've talked a lot about verbal expression.
But are there other ways to express yourself authentically?
Absolutely. Authenticity can be expressed through actions, choices,
Yes.
and creative pursuits.
Okay.
It can show up in how you dress, the music you listen to,
Right.
the art you create, the causes you support.
So it's about letting your true self shine through in all areas of your life,
You got it.
not just when you're speaking.
And remember, authenticity is a journey, not a destination.
Right.
It's constantly evolving, just like you are.
This has been such an insightful conversation, but
Yeah.
before we wrap up, I want to touch on one more thing. The article mentions that our voices can evolve over time. How does that work? I mean, if we're supposed to be authentic, doesn't that mean we can't change our minds?
That's a fantastic question. Just as we change and grow as people, our voices transform too.
Okay.
What you were passionate about at 20 might not hold the same weight at 40.
So it's not about clinging to old opinions just for the sake of consistency.
No, it's about being open to new experiences and information.
As you learn and grow, it's natural for your views to shift.
And that's actually a good thing. I'm so used to thinking changing your mind means you were wrong before.
It's actually a sign of maturity. Being able to reconsider your opinions means you're open to growth.
Okay, that's a new way to look at it. But how do you know when to reevaluate a belief? Are there signs that we might be holding on to something that's no longer serving us?
Pay attention to that feeling of dissonance, of something not sitting right anymore.
Oh.
If you find yourself defending a belief that feels out of alignment with your values or experiences, that's a clue.
So it's like a gut feeling that something's off.
Exactly. Another sign is resistance to new information.
Right.
If you shut down or get defensive whenever someone presents a different perspective,
Hmm.
you might be holding on too tightly to an outdated belief.
It's like we're scared to let go of what we thought was true, even if it's not working for us anymore.
That's so human. But growth requires letting go of those old beliefs to make space for new ones.
But how do you let go without feeling like you're losing a part of yourself?
It takes self-exploration.
Okay.
Ask yourself tough questions, challenge your own assumptions, and be open to the possibility that you might be wrong. It can be humbling,
Yeah, no one likes to admit they were wrong.
but it's also incredibly freeing. Letting go of those outdated beliefs creates space for growth, new possibilities, and a deeper understanding of yourself and the world.
So it's about letting go of the old to make way for the new.
Exactly. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination.
Speaking of journeys, the article kept talking about the importance of authenticity. But what does that really mean? Is it just about saying whatever pops into your head?
Not quite. Authenticity is about aligning your inner world with your outer world. It's about living in accordance with your values, expressing your true feelings, and being true to yourself, even when it's tough.
So it's not about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about being genuine.
Exactly. And it's about embracing your imperfections. Those are part of what makes you unique.
It's funny how we often try to hide those imperfections when they're what make us relatable.
Absolutely. When we embrace our whole selves, flaws and all, we become more approachable, more human.
So authenticity is about being comfortable in your own skin.
Exactly. And it's a process, not a destination.
Right.
We're all constantly evolving, and our expression of authenticity will evolve along with us.
Now, we've talked a lot about the benefits of speaking our truth, but are there ever times when it's better to stay silent?
That's a great question. Yes, there are times when discretion is the better part of valor.
Okay.
For instance, if speaking up could put you or someone else in danger, it's probably best to stay silent.
Like if you witness a crime or are in an abusive situation?
Exactly. In those situations, safety comes first.
What about in professional settings? Are there times when it's better to hold back at work?
There can be. Let's say you're in a meeting. Your boss proposes an idea you disagree with. It might not be the right time to launch into a debate, but that doesn't mean you have to stay completely silent.
So how do you navigate that?
You can express your concerns respectfully. Maybe phrase your disagreement as a suggestion or a question. Instead of, that's a terrible idea, you could say, have we considered the potential impact on X?
It's about picking your battles and finding the right way to voice your opinion, depending on the context.
Exactly. It's that discernment we talked about earlier.
Now, I know we've talked a lot about speaking our truth verbally, but I'm wondering if there are other ways to express ourselves authentically.
Absolutely. Authenticity can be expressed through our actions, our choices, and our creative pursuits. It can be reflected in the way we dress, the music we listen to, the art we create, and the causes we support.
So it's about finding ways to let our true selves shine through in all areas of our lives.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that authenticity is not a destination, it's a journey. We're all constantly evolving and growing, and our expression of authenticity will evolve along with us.
I love that. It's so freeing to think about it that way. Wow, this deep dive has been so insightful. We've talked about so much, like recognizing those moments when we keep quiet, to understanding how our voice changes as we grow, to even thinking about the science behind how we talk.
It really shows that voice is so much more than just the words we say.
Yeah. Before we finish up, I'm thinking about this idea from the article that finding your voice can help you live a more fulfilling life.
That's such a good point. When our actions match our values, the ones we were talking about earlier, and when we're brave enough to say what you really think, and when we use our voice to make things better, it gives us a sense of purpose.
It's like everything just falls into place.
Exactly. And that's something we should all aim for, no matter who we are or what our lives are like.
And the article also talked about our voices being part of this symphony of existence. It's such a beautiful thought, but how does that actually work in real life? Like, can what we say really make a difference in the world?
It's a beautiful idea, isn't it? Imagine everyone's story is like a musical instrument, and all those instruments come together to make this incredible piece of music. When we speak our truth, when we stand up for what we believe in, even when we just listen to someone else, we're adding our own special sound to that symphony.
So it's not about being famous or doing something huge. It's about the small things we do every day.
Exactly. It could be speaking up when you see something unfair, helping out in your community, or even having a tough conversation that needs to happen. It's about making little changes, even if they seem small.
Because those small changes can spread and make a bigger difference than we think. Are there certain things that make some voices more powerful than others in making change? What makes someone's voice really stand out and inspire people?
That's a really good question. I think it's all about the reason and feeling behind what someone is saying. When someone speaks with real passion and belief, it always sounds more powerful than someone who is trying to trick people or doesn't really mean it.
So being genuine is super important. People can tell if you're speaking from your heart.
Totally. It's like a built-in lie detector. And when you're genuine, people trust you and feel connected to you. And that's really important for making real change.
That makes a lot of sense. So we've talked about finding our voice, using it to express ourselves, and using it to help make the world a better place. But let's go back to something we discussed earlier, the work we need to do inside ourselves to find that voice in the first place.
You've hit on something crucial. It's that self-awareness we talked about. The more we know about ourselves, our values, our reasons for doing things, even our fears, the more real and strong our voice becomes.
It's like the more solid we are in ourselves, the more our voice can be heard by others.
Exactly. That connection within us is what helps our voice stand out and make a real impact.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this question. What can you do to connect more deeply with yourself? What helps you find that wisdom inside and become more self-aware? Because that's where finding your voice really starts.
It's been so great talking about this with you. It reminds us that everyone has a voice that deserves to be heard.
Absolutely. And to everyone listening, we hope this deep dive has inspired you to find and use your own unique voice. The world needs it.
Until next time, keep exploring.